Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Clock Talk with Dr. Greg Brannon, founder, owner of Optimal Bio, also Amazon bestseller gold medallion for Restore, his second book. Today, I want to talk to you about the introduction. You've obviously written a wonderful book. It's historical in some senses. You talk a lot in the preface about through time, man has sought a solution to either living forever
Yep.
or living healthier, et cetera, et cetera. First question, though, is from a 30,000 foot level, we all know we get older. We all know that we age. We all know that we die at some point in time. But what's happening with the body? Why can't you stay 20 forever?
Well, every cell type in our body has a deadline that will only multiply so many times. The problem is when they're aging at a quicker rate at a younger age, we may not die sooner. But by the way, we are the last couple of years in America, but we'll have chronic diseases sooner.
So let's hold on a second. Let's talk about that because our life expectancy
has went down
has
3
gone
years
down
in America, last 3 years.
And as the biggest economy, supposedly the best healthcare in the world,
infant care is infant health going down. Yeah, we could spend a lot of time.
What's going on?
What's going on? There's a lot of controversy on that. Processed foods. How many vaccines? How many at one time? What's in the vaccines? You know, the idea of making things easier for us, science-wise, is beneficial for our health. Walking, we're missing things we used to do. There's a lot of things like that. There's a book called The 100-Year Lie by the FDA. If you take away trauma, if you take away dirty water, we actually live a little longer 100 years ago, but dirty water and trauma were the number one killers back then. So now the advent of antibiotics, the effects, by the way, the only thing actually shown and proven to cure disease is antibiotics. So I think a ton of things, Jim. It's just we do things without thinking of repercussions. I was an OBGYN. So in the 50s and 60s, to help miscarriages, we gave thalidomide to support the uterus. It led to we had the babies without no limbs, okay? We gave DES to support the uterus. That caused more topics in pregnancy. So I think the motive may be right, but sometimes we miss the point. So the food pyramid was started in Sweden when they were run out of meat. So how can you sustain a society not on meat? And they found this way to sort of replace it. But it doesn't replace red meat and eggs and dairy. It just doesn't. But so in 77, it became the standard here, and now it's my plate. No, these things are terrible in the sense of overall. That's why what we should do is walk everywhere, lift heavy things every now and then, and eat red meat and eggs and grow our own vegetables. And again, to make fruit better, to make food better, we did these genetic modifications. But how does that genetic modification affect our system? There's so many variables out there that's the frustrating part. If you say it's one thing or another, I think it's like little thing at one drop of water over time. That's my thought.
So then as the body is aging
Quicker.
to your point, the cells have a certain shelf life, so
Yep.
to speak, and then they replicate.
Yep.
And then as they get older, they just stop replicating
Exactly.
as fast.
Yeah, it's called mitosis. And the thing is, there's theories on how long your telomeres are. There's different theories. The goals here, Jim, we die in America of cardiovascular disease, number one, neurodegenerative disease, cancer, number two, neurodegenerative disease, number three, falling down, number four. Peter Attia, in his book Outlive, has a great little graph showing the idea of pushing the health curve out, but at the same time, also longevity can go out further. We're missing the point. Well, if I go on bioidentical hormones or I do these things, I may be in good shape, but I'll die sooner. It's just the opposite. The healthier you are, the more you get those same disease processes out there, but we're going to push them out. Now, we can look at different causes of what those diseases are. I believe inflammation is the number one cause of both these things, and sugar is the number one culprit of that. In fact, the neurodegenerative disease is the third cause of death. We call Alzheimer's now type 3 diabetes. Sugar is a very sickly molecule. So you went from eating a lot less sugar to a bunch of sugar, and processed sugar is completely different too than out of the fruit. So these molecules are sticky. We've heard about hemoglobin A1C. That's how it measures how much sugar is in your body, because it sticks to hemoglobin and can last. And it also sticks to nerve tissues. That's Alzheimer's. It sticks to everything in our body. And that makes that function of that cell change structure, function. And that's why it's important to understand how we used to eat and why fasting was important. All these things are coming together. I believe the fad, Jim, is the standard American diet, the 3 meals a day, the 3 snacks. That's more of the current fad, not eat red meat, eat a lot of fat, eat the eggs, and grow your own vegetables.
So let's compare today to, let's say, your great-great-grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Going back in time, he's probably searching for longevity, right? He wants to live forever.
Yeah, that's the thing, yes.
But what's his health profile look like back then? Now, obviously, he's vulnerable to infection because antibiotics weren't around yet and all that stuff, but dirty water's around, et cetera, et cetera. But compare that individual to today's individual.
It's crazy, Jim. There was a study done in England looking at pre-industrial revolution. And the average size man and the average person ate like 6,000 calories a day, was around 5'7", 5'8". And what's interesting was when World War I started, they had to lower the height standard to 5'3" because there was less men that generation, that height and that weight after canned food. Now there's a lot of benefits to all this stuff. I'm getting it. But when they were walking for their food, eating free range, this is a great study out of England. And it showed that so you have a generation prior to the Industrial Revolution and then right before, right after it, and World War I. Now, and some of the complex stories was it that they needed more men and they had a lower to get more men? No, it was that there wasn't men meeting the standard they had prior to that time. So now you think we'll be healthier now, Jim, and the problem is we're not healthier. Again, back to that book, The 100-Year Lie, diabetes, cancer is like less than 1% of all of us. Was it better documentation? Maybe. Did they not live off to get it? Maybe. But still, there was a healthier middle-aged people were healthier for longer periods of time.
And is the reason why the population gets bigger is because there's more nutrition when they're younger and growing?
Yeah, you think about
theory?
it. Yeah, I think about it because breast milk is mostly fat and cholesterol and omega-3 fatty acids. Going to, we think we made it better. I'll go in the 50s and 60s, started pushing, formula. It can't equal human milk. It's just, we could go one thing after another. It's all these things to try to be better. We're not better. And that's what's very frustrating to me. So this whole idea, and I wrote, there's a little story like Ponce de Leon, who never found the fountain of youth, but the fountain of youth. You have a little story about Indiana Jones looking for the Holy Grail. And he says, that in the book, he says, choose wisely. So you think Christ's mug is at this great golden, ornate, unbelievable jeweled cup? No, it became the simple master cup because who Christ was. So the whole idea is we just got to choose wisely, but the choice is yours. And that's what's so cool about liberty and freedom. But we have to do that. So my thing is this: living forever would be a nightmare. That's not in this world for me. Living forever and being sick would be really a nightmare. So to me, I think the Holy Grail, again, aging has some beautiful benefits. Seeing your children, seeing your grandchildren, seeing what you've built, seeing being part of community. I think age and wisdom is, biblically, gray hair is wisdom. These are important things to do. But how about if we had the health when we were 20 years of age? If you had the health at 20 and the wisdom of your 60, Jim, that to me is the Holy Grail.
So when you're describing the Holy Grail and the preface, and you're giving examples of people searching for that magic water or that magic whatever to live forever, you're not advocating living forever. You're advocating living healthier, for longer. But while you're in the long game, so to speak, you're just a lot healthier.
Right. The longevity curve and the health curve, and again, he has a great graph on that. They're concurrent. They don't go in opposite directions. Now, there are some ways where you do some non-human anabolic steroids where you may look like you're in better shape. But that's judging the book out from its cover, and you're not really in metabolic health. UNC Chapel did a study about 5-6 years ago that showed only 12% of Americans are metabolically healthy. So think about that. So most of them are following the American diet. Something's wrong. And again, but what's good for your diet may be different from my diet. And that's where I want to get back to freedom, to choice, to decide what you want to do. I mean, this idea of you can't, non-pasteurized milk is insane. It's right out of the cow. It's right there. And pasteurizing it, when you heat it up, yes, I understand about salmonella, I understand the disease process, but it kills all the benefits and it denatures the protein. So there are, and again, we've been drinking milk for 6,000 years. So that's what bothers me. I think sometimes newer things are better, and I don't believe there always are, Jim.
Agree on that. And obviously, the milk lobbyists are pushing Congress not to, allow for this unpasteurized fresh milk, to be consumed by humans. It certainly can be consumed by animals,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, it's not good enough for humans.
Yeah, and but again, we've been using it for years. Free range eggs are different. Whatever we eat, remember we eat what they ate, and that's why it's important. Like you look at glyphosate, we know most of the world that it's a carcinogenic agent, but it's still here on our food. What does that do to the gluten molecule? What does that do to our body? We know atrazine is another herbicide that we know is now converting. They're converting. There's this lake in England. There's no more male frogs or male fish in there because the atrazine spilling over. We know these endocrine disruptors are out there. And if I remember correctly, I think since World War II, there's been 85,000 new chemicals released to the society. You can't study 85,000 chemicals. So back to my thalidomide, you got to see results of this. And Frederick Bastiat wrote an essay called The Law, and he talks about these witch doctors. They'll try something on one generation, and if they mess up, they cascade that generation aside. They'll try something else. But every time they do, Jim, they exempt themselves. And that, to me, what drives me nuts. The king and queen and the mirror. I can't stress that enough. So what I want to do is put as much information in front of people to make decisions. Madison talked about that. He said, knowledge will forever govern ignorance. And for those who want to be their own governors, they must understand the power that knowledge gives. That's why, to me, we have a Bible verse that starts our book. The fear of the Lord is bigger than all wisdom. I think it's important to know who we are, where we're from, and understand that it's a gift here, and not be afraid to ask questions.
Is restore the Holy Grail?
No, no. I think it's part of it. I don't be arrogant to think it's it, but I do believe that this body will restore. I think this body is so magnificently made that when it's given the correct substrates, you talked about water and food, and these substrates of fat and proteins and carbohydrates, exercise, sleep, I think the body has the mechanism inside of it to restore to its most optimal health. Yes, I do. Is the book itself? I hope it's part of your journey, but I believe it's part of it.
Obviously, in this first chapter too, when I was reading it, I felt like the body itself is an amazing adaptable machine.
Yes.
So these people in the old days, I mean, they didn't have heat, they didn't have electricity. They're cold in the winter, they're hot in the summer. Talk to us how the body adapts.
Yeah, it's built this system. Again, it goes back to, I believe we're made in God's image, right? So he knew what he's making in us. And you look back, like today, we do saunas and cold plunges. We've done every last 50 years to avoid both of those. There's this thing called cold shock and heat shock proteins that have shown to be anti-inflammatory. So maybe just living in nature that way back in those systems made us more hardy, we'll say. So I just a believer that our body can adapt. Here's the big thing, Jim, I really want to focus on. Nothing in this body works in isolation. Nothing. When you follow a process, we'll say insulin, and you're lowering your sugar. Well, that affects fat. That affects testosterone. That affects this. Everything in the body, we eat this food, it breaks down to smaller particles. You reabsorb it, you reassemble it. It's amazing. We have depends what you tell, 30 trillion cells in our body. It's all working in this beautiful symphony at different times, different rates, and doing things. So you want to give the body what it needs: sleep, the proper foods, the rest, and stress. Stress is good for the muscle to grow, good for the brain to push itself. As we age, learning a new language as we age, learning calculus, pushing your brain to work. These things are crucially important for the system to stress, because it's made to adapt. We wouldn't be here for 6,000 years of society if we didn't have that.
Yeah, the other thing that jumped out at me in the preface also is the Proverbs quote 27:17, iron sharpens iron, man sharpens man.
Yep.
So as the body goes through hardships, whether they're physical or they're emotional, mental, if you're able to overcome them, then you become stronger and stronger.
Jim, I can't agree more. I mean, We've heard stories about people that had this terrible upbringings and became the leaders of this or that. And then we have guys who are not, and it's sometimes being too cushiony is the problem.
Mhm.
And I still want the best for our kids. You have 4 kids. I got to say, want the best for our kids. But sometimes the best for our kids is falling down. I know in my life, I've had you around for me, help me up when I fell down. It's important to learn to fall. And then I believe, again, I believe society is at its best when an individual has the opportunity to fail and succeed. And I think that's what builds a community.
Get your copy of Restore. Clock Talk with Dr. Greg Brannon.